they need a big win. Here to explain how that could happen is friend of the show, Josh Brewster. Josh, thanks for jumping in.
Oh, boom. Thanks for having me. Good to be with you.
So I spent a while trying to think where I wanted to start this interview because it can go in a bunch of different directions, different questions. But I think we get back to the same old stuff with Buffalo. How is it conceivable in your mind that 14 years into a losing streak, the head coach of the Sabres has to call out his team after game number 2, begging them to bring some commitment and some effort to their game? That just doesn't resonate with me at all. We need to be long past that by now.
Absolutely. And so I asked myself, what is the constant over the last 14 years of no playoffs? And the constant, and unfortunately it's kind of underreported in my view, is experience. The answer is not in the room. It is not going to be in the room. It is not in Rochester. It is not on the org chart. But on a positive note, the Sabres do have some good young players, but that's not going to deliver it. The problem is immaturity. So I'm going to hit you with some numbers, and then we're going to go from there. Only 4 of the past 40 Cup finalists, in the last 40 Cup finalists, winners and runners-up, only 4 of them have come from the youngest third of the league, okay? And so there's the Chicago Blackhawks, had a couple teams that were young, but that's it, and they won, that's it. So you have a problem with experience here, and this has been a constant through Tim Murray, through Jason Botterill, and now through Kevin Adams, and it's a big problem. So when you start there, when you are always one of the youngest, this has not helped you. And in my view, we need to talk about ways that the general manager needs to stop the bleeding. And I'm not talking next year. I'm talking October 15th. This has been their problem. They do not have the kind of veteran leadership that they need, and that's what I want to break down with you today.
How do you solve that problem for UFAs out there who have their choice of places to go? For some of them, Buffalo will be 32 in the rankings. I mean, the mess that they're in and the marketplace, trying to encourage someone to go to Buffalo, that's a phone call that probably doesn't get picked up half the time.
Well, as far as Kevin Adams is concerned, you're getting paid a good buck to be GM. Make it happen. You're already in the most rabid hockey market in America, in hockey. And if you don't believe me, go look at the television ratings. But Buffalo as a destination is the general manager's job. It is the marketing guy's job to put butts in the seats, but it is the general manager's job to make Buffalo a destination for the players. And you can say it's an uphill climb, or that it's not a popular destination right now. Well, you make it one. You are sitting on the border of Canada, right across the river from where I'm sitting is Canada. Southern Ontario specifically, more than a few NHL guys, 2,000 NHL guys have come from there, and it's a great hockey market. So Buffalo as a destination has got to be preeminent in the GM's thoughts. I want to talk about what I observed in Anaheim with my almost 20 years working there with the Ducks, and we're going to and talk to you about what the Ducks have done lately that the Sabres could take a lead from. When I was there, and Brian Burke pulled in, Scott Niedermayer, Chris Pronger, Tane Solani returned, there was a different dressing room. And that is what the Sabres need now. And while it's not easy to get someone to hand you Hall of Fame players, there are players, Dmitry Orlov changed teams, Jake Truitt changed teams. There's all kinds of guys out there. Chris Kreider changed teams. There's all kinds of guys out there who have played a lot of games in the NHL, who, when we had Pronger, could you imagine if you have a guy, it doesn't have to be a Hall of Famer, but if you have a guy who's 35 years old and he's sitting on that bench, you have that kind of leadership, Brad Marchand, for example, Corey Perry, you're not skating back to that bench with this constant and ongoing compete level problem. So it changes the dressing room. So let's tell you what the Ducks have right now. If you look at all the young players that get all that attention, like the Sabres have, they have 11 first-round picks in their organization, 11 of them. They have Dahlin, they have Power, they've got some stuff. But if you take a look at what Pat Verbeek did between getting Kreider and Killorn and Gudas and Trouba and Granlund, all well over the age of 31, 33, 34, 36. I counted this up last night. As of last night, Kreider, Killorn, Gudas, Trouba, and Granlund have played 4,447 games in the NHL. So I believe that it's Kevin Adams' business right now to get out there, get on the phone, don't ask who's available, ask what the price is, and pull in off 3,000 games played in the NHL. And you can start right there for the kind of leadership you need. Because the leadership you need, you have Alex Tuck and Jason Zucker, that's cool, but you don't have the leadership you need to pull these youngsters along.
Well, I think you could even argue the better reference point would be their opponent tonight in the Ottawa Senators, because these two have been linked together forever. Which team is better? Which team is going to make the playoffs first? We have the answer now because Ottawa made the playoffs last year, but I think you would argue that they went out and got their Claude Giroux and their David Perron and their Nick Jensen, and maybe that was the thing that got them over the finish line last season.
Well, yeah, and I'm talking about like a couple of top 9 forwards and a couple of defensemen who can play in your 6. But you've got to do it because here's what's happening. You have to stop the bleeding today, October 15th. You have given up Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, Dylan Cousins, J.J. Peterka, and Casey Middlestott, just to name a few. And even if, in fairness, we have to say, look, there's going to be some attrition. You're not going to keep everybody. That's fine. But when you look now, you've got Power, you've got Dahlin, you've got Jack Quinn, even Tage Thompson. And by the way, Alex Tuck wants to be here. He's not that young anymore, but he wants to be here. So you have been bleeding talent. You cannot afford to bleed any more of these high draft picks that are young. You have to give them some structure. And this means today. And, you know, you cannot, the experience that I just laid out, almost 4,500 games between these guys that the Ducks pulled in, you've got to pull in a lot of experience. What I was going to say here now is you have draft picks. You have 11 draft picks drafted in the first round playing in your organization. But take a look at the Vegas Golden Knights. They've had only 12 draft picks total in the last 3 drafts. So if I'm Kevin Adams, I have things I can give away. I don't need more prospects right now, or I don't need that many. The Vegas Golden Knights are perfectly fine drafting 4 guys each season, it seems. And they seem to be doing okay, right? So you have to leverage whatever you can to make this a destination. You got to sell guys. Come in here. You're going to work with Reinhart. You can tell a defenseman with experience, hey, we need someone to bring Owen Power along. We're going to try to do something here. You're the GM. You've got to make this happen, and you can't just accept that you're not a destination at the moment. You just cannot accept it. And I think that the fan base is very beaten down here, and quite honestly, I think they've started to accept that too.
So where are we right now? Are we coming or are we going? Because they're already doing a rebuild out of a rebuild, a third rebuild. I don't know who would have a palate for that, but everybody wants to know, okay, where do you go? Well, if you're going to fire the GM, you better have a plan in place on what you do after that. Jake and I were discussing this yesterday. Neither of us have a solution for this.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, there is no rebuild at hand because you're already torn down. You have to stop this bleeding. You're hemorrhaging talent. I just listed guys like Eichel, Reinhardt, et cetera. You have to stop the bleeding. So, to me, I would look at it like, look, folks have talked about Jarmo Kekalainen is now working in the organization. I would give Adams another month and say, you get some veterans in here because we can't keep bleeding young players. And look, after a few years in the league, if a young player sees no future, he's going to say, "Get me out of here." That's just how it works. And then, God forbid, Alex Tuck at the end of the year says, "You can get me out of here now." You got more problems. Tage Thompson, some of these guys are signed, but if they ever walk in and say, "You got to trade me," you got a bad situation. So I'm a big believer that there are players out there that you could bring in who have 700, 800, 900 games played in the National Hockey League. You got to do it. You have to work these phones, cough up the draft picks, but I would give them about a month because, as you know, 75% of playoff participants are figured out by New Year's Day. So, here's the thing. I could not see the Sabres losing. You talk about losing a guy like Ballin at some point, or you lose a guy like Power or Tuck or Tage Thompson. You got to fix it now. And the whole idea of the future. I've been watching Buffalo sports for almost 60 years. The future is like kryptonite to me. There is no rebuild. You're already torn down. You've torn it down by by being the youngest team, one of the youngest teams in the league for years. It has never worked. You're on 4 GMs now where it has never worked. The coach, God knows, is not the problem. Lindy's coached 1,600 games. That's not the problem. So I would say let's put out a tourniquet.
Before I let you go, Josh, the game tonight, Ottawa, it's a division rival. You've only got 2 goals in 3 games. You're 0 for 11 on the power play. And if you don't win tonight, you're 0-4 with the Panthers coming to town on Saturday, which doesn't sound like a formula. What are you anticipating from the Sabres this evening?
Well, look, I think they started real well, Colorado Avalanche, but I think that, look, Lindy has got to be pulling his hair out that there's too much perimeter play. I see Shane Doan's son, Josh, going to the front of the net regularly. I think they'll start very, very strong, but I think that they are easily wounded. And if the first goal goes Ottawa's way, I hate to say it, I think that they're going to go right down the same road, but they've got to start the way they started against Colorado, and they again, who's going to lead? Maybe it's guys like Alex Tuck. Maybe they are vocal already, Zucker vocal already, but it's got to be a very strong start. The idea that they don't have talent is just pure nonsense. But like I said, there is an element, and that element is experience. Just get through tonight with your foot on the gas, because I have a feeling that despite Lindy's frankness, I have a feeling there's probably another 100 things that he'd like to say that he hasn't said.
Josh, thanks for the time. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll stay in touch.
Oh, much appreciated. All the best.